Yemen continues to burn following the Israeli bombings. The Houthis are threatening a harsh response to Israel, but in an indirect way, Israel hurt Iran even more than the Houthis. So we'll take a closer look at everything that can be said about the attack in Yemen. Besides that, the IDF reported that they found a treasure trove of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar's most important documents in Gaza, which will answer many of the questions we've had for some time, as well as helping plan for future operations against this terrorist organization. The bottom line is that the Israeli pressure on Hamas is working, and that goes for the pressure that is being put on Hezbollah as well. Meanwhile, in Judea and Samaria, Israeli security operations are not taking any breaks. In the last 24 hours, a plot directed by Hamas operatives in Turkey to send young Palestinian students to make a significant attack in Israel was broken up. Finally, Israel is responding to the false narrative about the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 290th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and all the other Iranian proxy groups in Iraq and Syria. IDF forces continue to operate in the Gaza Strip, hitting Hamas on the ground as well as from the air and the sea. In the last 24 hours, soldiers from the Givati Brigade's combat team operating in the southern city of Rafah engaged terrorists in fierce battles, which resulted in the elimination of several terrorists as well as the destruction of rocket launch sites and other weapons meant to harm Israelis. At the same time, the forces of the 401st Brigade combat team located and destroyed tunnels and underground infrastructure located in the Tel El Sultan area. In the center of the Gaza Strip, soldiers from the Alexandroni Brigade raided a number of military buildings where various weapons were located. Meanwhile, IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi was in Rafah on Sunday to participate in a situation assessment day and hear from the troops. During his remarks, he said, "Iran has arms. You fight here with one arm. We fight in other places with other arms, and this requires excellence against each of them." New information became available on Monday morning as the IDF said it was preparing to act strongly in the Gaza Strip to finish off the remnants of Hamas and complete the mission. The displaced people, which live in several neighborhoods in Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip, which are considered part of the humanitarian zone in the Palestinian enclave, were called to evacuate following several attempted launches of rockets into Israel and other terrorist attacks which have emanated from these designated safe zones. The IDF spokesman stated that the terrorist organization Hamas has placed terrorist infrastructure in an area that was defined as a humanitarian area. That is why the IDF is preparing to act there. Meanwhile, following the joint operation by the IDF and the Shin Bet on Sunday, in which about 20 terrorists from the Shati battalion were eliminated, it was determined that the terrorist who carried out the shooting attack that killed the late Colonel Tal Lahat was also eliminated. Another notable achievement in this operation was the elimination of Namer Hameida, who rose through the ranks of Hamas in recent years. But he first came to the IDF's attention all the way back in 2003, when he was part of an attack which killed 3 IDF soldiers. The account the IDF had with this evil man is now closed. Shifting our attention now to Judea and Samaria. The Shin Bet operation in Ramallah recently thwarted an attack planned by a terrorist squad made up of students from Bir Zayt University under the direction of Hamas operatives in Turkey. Details about these arrests were released on Sunday following a joint investigation by the IDF, the Shin Bet, and the Israeli police. According to the Shin Bet's announcement, money was sent from Hamas operatives in Turkey for these students to buy weapons meant to carry out a significant attack against Israelis. The students were also directed to set up terrorist infrastructure for Hamas to carry out more attacks in the future. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on these developments, so please continue to spread the truth by sharing these videos on YouTube and following us on social media. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you want to receive more content like this one, you can help us by making a donation through the link you see on YouTube, or go to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel. Switching our focus once again to the northern arena, Israeli intelligence agencies issued an assessment in Sunday saying that the operational capabilities of the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorist organization have been eroded at the level of command and control, as well as in terms of their armament stockpile, their weapons. At the same time, Hezbollah's relationship in the general public in Lebanon has also been damaged by recent events. But the IDF has no intention of resting on these achievements. Instead, they will continue to pound Hezbollah targets like they did over the weekend when they hit Hezbollah ammunition depots in Adlon, 30 kilometers north of the Israeli border. The warehouses that were hit in this strike, which the IDF defined as critical, were filled with weapons that Hezbollah had intended to use against Israel. We know that because secondary explosions were observed in the area for hours after the Israeli strike. This forced Hezbollah to close the area off, blocking access roads so no one could get in or out for several hours. In addition to this, in the last 24 hours, it was announced that 2 senior field operatives of the Radwan Force, Hezbollah's elite commando unit, were eliminated by IDF strikes in southern Lebanon. These were only the latest in a long line of Hezbollah fighters who have been taken off the battlefield in the last few weeks. In addition to this, the IDF has also eliminated several operatives from Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad who were operating in Lebanon. The IDF assesses that these operatives were some of the highest value operatives these terrorist organizations had in the field, and their removal will make any operation that the political echelon orders the IDF to carry out in Lebanon much easier. Another issue, of course, is all the rockets, anti-tank missiles, and drones that Hezbollah keeps firing into northern Israel. The IDF announced this week that it is redeploying defensive tools first used almost 20 years ago to deal with this threat. We're talking about the 20mm Vulcan cannon, a somewhat old-fashioned anti-aircraft gun. These guns are so old that they're new again, because they're exactly what is needed to be used against slow-moving suicide drones. They will also be useful to protect Israeli aircraft against Hezbollah's anti-aircraft missiles. This is particularly important in the skies over the Galilee, which is such a short distance away from southern Lebanon. Rockets and other weapons fired from southern Lebanon into Israel only need to fly for a short time before hitting their targets, making them more difficult to intercept. The terrain features in southern Lebanon also makes it difficult for Israeli radar to track incoming weapons. For all of these reasons, the Vulcan cannons and the radar that they use to track incoming targets are being upgraded and improved. But for the foreseeable future, UAVs will continue to be a serious problem for the IDF as it works to defend Israel from attacks. So please continue to spread the truth, share our videos on YouTube, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Before we continue with the news, I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Arza. You can stand with Israel by subscribing to Arza and receive beautiful, handcrafted products that bring the essence of the Holy Land to your house. Arza allows you to support Israel's economy and savor the diverse flavors, scents, and craftsmanship of the Holy Land. Go to arzabox.com and enter the code TBNIL to receive an exclusive 10% discount on your Arza Box subscription. Thank you. Now back to the news. The Yemeni port city of Hodeidah was still burning on Monday morning. The Ministry of Health in Yemen said that 6 people had been neutralized in the strike, where 3 are still missing and 83 were injured. Immediately after yesterday's attack on the port by the Israeli warplanes, the Houthi elements began threatening a response, and those threats have continued to come. Mohammed Abdel Salam, the spokesman for the Houthis, stated to Al Jazeera today that they will strike back at Israel. We will target the depths of Israel. All sensitive facilities at all levels will be our targets. He added The enemy is no longer safe even in what is called Tel Aviv, and the threat will continue, and this is a new equation. The Israeli aggression against Hodeidah was blatant. The confrontation with the Zionist enemy will be open and without borders. Our reach is long. He also noted that the drone used in the attack on Friday morning in Tel Aviv had been manufactured in Yemen as part of the 5th phase of their operations. For those who missed it and are not sure what the Houthi spokesman is talking about, Israel launched an unprecedented attack against the Houthi rebels on Saturday, targeting power plants, refineries, and military targets. The attack caused an estimated $100 million in damage to the Houthi-controlled port facilities, according to an expert who is privy to the details. The attack made it clear to the Houthis that they will never be safe from Israel's response to their aggression. But it has additional meanings for Iran and other regional players, including Saudi Arabia. Yemen has launched around 220 attacks against Israel since this war began, but only one of these missiles managed to penetrate Israel's defenses, and that missile landed harmlessly in the open desert outside the Red Sea resort city of Eilat. However, on Friday morning, the Houthis crossed the red line with one of their drones, hitting a residential building in Tel Aviv near the branch of the American embassy and not far from the British embassy. Israel's response of hitting the port of Hodeidah was important for its own sake, but also because it sends a message to friends and enemies alike. This port was the base of operations for the Houthis' oil smuggling industry, as well as other illegal operations, which brought in an estimated $1.8 billion in revenue every year. The loss of that revenue is expected to promote the Houthis to turn to their Iranian patron for support, but that might not work as Iran has plenty of its own problems these days. To make a brief comment on all of this, every country where Iran gets involved, whether it's Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, or among the Palestinians, turns into a disaster zone. The Iranians shamelessly use these countries for their own purposes and avoid taking any responsibility for the terrible things that happen to the ordinary people who live there as a result. The Iranians must have known that their policy of using the Houthis to attack Israel from the territory of Yemen would draw a response, but they probably didn't anticipate that Israel would hit the oil facilities. These facilities are an important source of revenue for the Houthis, but the port is also an important economic asset for all the Yemens. Around 70% of the country's imports come through this port, including humanitarian aid, but the Houthis also used it to import weapons from Iran to use against Israel and international shipping lanes. The Iranians are no doubt surprised and sorry to see the damage from these strikes, but the fact is they haven't suffered any damage themselves. Iran's ports, oil, infrastructure, and all its military bases and assets have not been touched, and that's unlikely to change in the near future. However, Iran must also take note about what Israel just did. The flight distance between Israel and Hodeidah is hundreds of kilometers longer than the distance between Israel and strategic targets in Iran. Also notable is the flight path that these Israeli aircrafts took, which must have included the use of Saudi airspace. Did Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman give Israel permission to use his airspace for this attack? If so, he might be willing to give Israel permission to use his airspace to attack Iran in the future. This means that Saudi Arabia and also Egypt have given their support to Israel's military operations against a close Iranian ally. Everyone in the region knows this, and although this cooperation must be kept quiet in order to keep order amongst the Arab public, it is plain enough for everyone to see. All of that having been said, the Houthis appear to be trying to follow the pattern set by Hezbollah in Lebanon. Besides the fact that they are supported by the same entity, Iran, both groups often recruit their foot soldiers from the poor and the oppressed in society, brainwashing them into thinking that the best thing available to them in this world is to die as a martyr while fighting Israel and the West. Of course, they also oppose Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and other moderate Arab countries. The slogan of the Houthis that appears on their flag, I will translate it for you, word by word: death to the United States of America, death to Israel, and curse on the Jews. Like Hezbollah, the Houthis developed a myth of victory. For them, they stood alone before a Saudi-led coalition of Arab armies for several years and survived. This is similar to the victory Hezbollah claimed to have won surviving against Israel in 2006. The Houthis have also developed a cult of personality around their leader, Abdel Malik al-Houthi, who appears before crowds on a giant screen similar to the leader of Hezbollah, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, in Lebanon. Their appearance in traditional Bedouin clothing seems strange and maybe even amusing to some people. They often compose songs and like to dance while carrying weapons, for example, after taking over a ship. But in fact, they are not amusing at all. On the contrary, it is a cruel organization, a combination of terrorists and pirates who are taught to hate Jews and hate the West. We will continue to update you on this issue. So please continue to spread the truth. Take a minute and click the follow button and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and share our videos with anyone who wants to know what is happening in Israel and to pray for the situation. I want to conclude today's report by saying thank you to Joe Biden and wish him well. I try not to get involved in politics on this show, but I can't deny that President Biden was a great friend of Israel and Zionism for several years, even before he became President of the United States. This support continued even amidst political quibbling, and it also stood against tremendous pressure from within his own Democratic Party in recent times. Joe Biden continued standing with Israel despite all the pressure, and it is super vital to preserve the bipartisan support for the Jewish state in the United States. However, it is apparent that in the years to come, the support for Israel from America will no longer be something we can take for granted. Younger generations of Americans across the spectrum have little knowledge of the Second World War and the Holocaust or any other seminal events in modern Jewish or even American history. They do not feel bound by any previous convention regarding the Jewish people and Israel. That is why it is so important for you to help us by praying for Israel and teaching everyone, especially the young people, the truth. So spread the truth about Israel, share our content, and pray again for the safety of the IDF soldiers in the air, on the ground, and in between. Pray for the peace of the hostages held by the terrorist organization Hamas in Gaza. Pray for the peace of Israel, and most importantly, unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.